Good morning and welcome to Sunday. Sorry, I'm running just a minute late. Let's take a breath and settle in. Today, we're going to talk about impermanence and transitions and the nature of transition. And I'm going to talk about Bardo spaces. Some of you may know about Bardo spaces, some of you may not. But I think it's important, and I will get into that more a little later. Let's talk a little bit about the mindfulness field and the field of awareness and what it includes as a way of introduction into this morning's meditation. Some people have told me they feel like when they get lost in thought or strong emotions come up, that feels like an interruption, but it's really not. There are no interruptions and nothing is excluded. The point is to bring awareness. We are practicing being aware of what our experience is in whatever moment that is. If we're experiencing quiet and focus on breathing, then that's what we're experiencing. And we're aware of it. If we're experiencing a lot of noise in the head and thoughts coming and going, that's what we're experiencing. We bring awareness to it. If we start to feel sad or elated, that's what we're experiencing. We bring awareness to it. So, when we notice those things, I'd like to offer 2 words that you can say to yourself as a way of including these things in your awareness. This too. I'm meditating, and I notice that I'm thinking about my drive to North Carolina next week. This too. I'm meditating and I'm contemplating, and I notice I'm thinking about that thing I forgot to buy at the grocery store. This too. One of the things that is worth noticing about the thought stream is it's so random, right? I mean, it goes back to music I was playing when I was working in radio in the 70s, and it goes forward to something that may or may not happen later. This too. I'm meditating and I feel a little sad. This too. Nothing is excluded. So it's sort of similar to what I introduced a couple of weeks ago, of saying yes. When you notice some process going on in your mind, say yes. So when you notice some process going on in your mind, bring some mindful awareness to that and say, this too. And do it with some gentleness. And if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to. If everything I offer comes under the heading of take what you like and leave the rest. So why don't we find a comfortable meditation posture. A posture that allows you to be alert, but not rigid. And gently close your eyes. And let's just start by noticing the inflection points. noticing the feeling of your body in the seat and your feet on the floor. Noticing your experience of your body being held down by gravity. And let's take a few slow, deep breaths. And just notice any tension or holding. And just notice you don't have to do anything about it. Just this too is in your awareness. If you feel like trying to relax your shoulders a little more or your face a little more, that's fine. You can do that. And notice what that feels like. This too. Nothing is excluded. Mm, letting your breathing return to normal. And letting your awareness rest and focus on the body's experience of breathing. Noticing the sensations on the in-breath, the air moving through your nose, your chest and belly expanding. Maybe a slight pause at the top of the in-breath. Maybe not. This too. And noticing the sensations of the out-breath. Maybe your shoulders drop a little bit. Your stomach relaxes a little bit. Noticing the physical sensations of the body breathing as the air moves out of your nose. And resting your awareness and your focus on the experience of the body breathing and staying with the breath. Any sensations that you may notice, this too. The temperature of the room, if you notice, this too. All things in the field of awareness. Thoughts come and go. We just notice this too. Without getting wrapped up in the content of whatever it is we're thinking. Just thought as a phenomenon, as like a little bauble moving across your field of awareness. Just acknowledge this too. And come back to your breathing as often as you must. If you feel like you're wandering off a lot and having to remember to come back a lot, that's okay. This too, in the field of awareness. including everything in the field of awareness. This too, thoughts, sensations. This too, bringing your focus back to your breathing again and again. This too, just being aware of whatever experience you're having in the moment, whether it's quiet, focused, whether it's noisy, confused. This too, whether the mind is easily distracted today, as it is on some days, or more focused today, as it is on some days, just observing this too. And as we come towards the end of this sitting, just noticing whatever state your mind and body are in right now and how that feels to you. Noticing if anything has shifted or if it hasn't during the course of this sitting. And may it be that this practice and this meditation helps us to gaze out upon the world with kindness and compassion. May it be that the benefits of this practice help us bring kindness and compassion into all of our interactions. May the benefits of this practice flow out into our households and immediate relationships, and out into the neighborhoods around us, into our towns and communities. May the benefits of this practice be of benefit to all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease and at peace. Thank you for your practice. And the Facebook feed is still live. How about that? Could it be as simple as just doing it on a different browser? Oh my God. Transitions. That's the topic today. The Tibetan Buddhists believe, well, we'll back up. It's a central tenet in Buddhism that all things are impermanent and that we suffer because we become attached to things that are ethereal, that are impermanent and coming and going. And the Tibetan Buddhists take that, remind us that everything is in transition all the time. We're always in one transition or another. Getting vaccinated. Now it's safe to resume some semblance of normalcy. That's a transition out of what came before it. Then there's the Delta variant. And now we're in another transition, not as safe as it was before. Working at home during the pandemic, going back to work, it's a transition. Now going back home for some people to work at home, it's another transition. We have transitions that occur in our lives all the time, changing jobs, retiring, ending a relationship, whether you're the one who ended it or not, beginning a relationship. How many times during the course of a day does your mood and perspective change? You're always in one transition or another. A little more than a year ago, I was diagnosed with a pretty serious kidney condition that I have to manage every day. That was a transition. That was a major transition. And I experienced a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. It's always one transition or another. And the Tibetans, being students of transition, have identified a point in transition that they call the Bardo, Bardo. The full name of it, Bardo Thadal, which loosely translates, a lot of Tibetan loosely translates into English as place of becoming. The Bardo is the point in a transition where you have transitioned out of whatever it is you're transitioning out of, and whatever it is you're transitioning into has not materialized. It's a liminal space, it's an in-between space. They tend to be confusing. Sogyal Rinpoche in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying described the Bardo as a continuous, unnerving oscillation between clarity and confusion, bewilderment and insight, uncertainty and certainty, sanity and insanity. The thing about Bardos is they are uncertain and confusing. The ground is soft when it should be solid, is solid when it should be soft. The walls are too close together and too far apart at the same time. The goalposts appear to be moving. Up is down and down is up. And it may seem bleak and hopeless when we're at this point in transition, when we're in the bardo. It may seem like we're stuck in the back of a cave that's collapsing in the front. It's dark in there. But the truth about bardo spaces and transitions that we often lose, I think, is that it's a tunnel, not a cave. It dips a little in the middle so it looks dark, but you're always in a tunnel. It's not a cave. And there is a big, bright, beautiful light at the end of the tunnel. It's whatever you are moving towards at the end of this transition, or me coming at you on my motorcycle, or both. Um, put out your arm, I'll pick you up as I go by. And it's, I think it's really valuable to know about bardos and recognize when we're in one. We're in one now. The rules are changing with COVID. We're in one now. You're in the middle of this process with me, and it's going to end, and you're going to go on to something else. The thing about bardos, the first thing you have to remember is when you're feeling stuck, that's a good indication that you're in a bardo. And bardos are not destinations. This is not where you land. They're a transition on the way to something else. And I find a lot of value in having this being an identifiable phenomenon. It tells me I'm not lost. I'm just experiencing a natural process. It's uncomfortable. Bardos are by nature uncomfortable, but it's an identifiable, discrete phenomenon that can be identified, navigated, and managed. And once we see that, it's easier to say, oh, I'm not losing my mind. I'm just having a transition here. And we can bring some mindful and awareness to this and decide to soften into it rather than doing what we habitually do, which is to meet it with some form of aversion or attachment. We can accept where we are. Oh, I'm in the middle of a transition. I don't have to resist that. And then it becomes easier. In part because we know that we're moving on to something else. It's easy to forget this when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling depressed, when we're grieving, when the house burns down. A friend of mine had his house burned down not that long ago. That we think that, oh my God, this is how my life has turned out. But it's not. It's a transition. It's a bardo. And if you look closely at the bardo when you're in it, it turns out that it's an inflection point. It's actually an opportunity for awakening and transformation. Because we can choose, once we're awake to where we are, we can choose how we're going to deal with that, what we're going to tell ourselves about that, and how we're going to put the next foot forward. Because it is still true that our experience is in two parts. Here's what happens, here's what we tell ourselves about what happens. What happens? I'm in a bardo. The house burned down. My relationship crashed. I lost my job. I retired. My mood changed. Whatever it is. Here's what I'm going to tell myself about what happens. That could be anything. And for me, I've sort of been copying the attitude of choosing optimism as a spiritual practice. And I call it a spiritual practice because it's similar to what I've often referred to as the manual labor of meditation. And that line from Genie to Pro, and so I remind myself as often as I must, which is very often. Hold still, stay here. I have to continuously remind myself that things work out. I'm choosing to be optimistic. I should give a whole talk on optimism sometime. And my attitude shifts because I remember again, oh, this feels really crappy. That's because Bardos feel crappy. And I'm going to choose to believe that when I come out the other side of this, I'm going to be okay. Bardos force us to review our assumptions. I'm assuming that this is going to work out, which is something I needed to hear myself say this morning. Funny how that works. And in those moments when we notice that we're in the middle of a transition, we can ask ourselves, okay, who do I want to be now? So we can pause and breathe and assess what is actually happening separately from what the narrating mind is telling us what's happening. Recognize that we're in the middle of a transition, that it feels messy, decide that we're okay. And meditation is a great training for this, just the practice of meditation while you're actually meditating, because you're being with whatever comes up. You're not going up and down through attachment and aversion with the mind stream as it's going, watching thoughts and feelings come and go, and do so with kindness, self-compassion, and gentleness, which are the qualities that we can bring to ourselves anytime, and we should, but they're more important when we're in a bardo. So I invite you to notice when the bardo appears. I have a really good friend in California who started a rock and roll band. She called it Bardo. I like that. She put a bumper sticker on her car that said "Bardos suck." Okay, they kind of do, only because they're hard, but not because they're not opportunities. So I invite you to notice when you're in transition. I invite you to notice what that feels like when you're feeling a difficult experience. I invite you to remember that when you are in the middle of that it is a transition and you're in a bardo, which is why it feels this way. And remember that you are okay. This is not where you land, and you're in the process of navigating your way to whatever is at the end of that tunnel. So, I thank you for your kind attention this morning. Does anybody have any questions about that or comments about that? Anybody in a bardo besides all of us?
I had a question, not particularly about Bardo, but just to another experienced meditator, if you don't mind.
I like that phrase, another experienced limitator. I'm stealing that.
I didn't say limitator, I said meditator.
Oh, okay. Electronic communication being what it is.
Yeah. So I guess this is more for unguided meditation. I've seen it sometimes, or I've seen it in some books that I've read. You focus on your breath and you come back to the breath as you talk about or whatever. I've also seen it, and I've practiced it the other way too, which is like if you, not necessarily with thoughts, but like if I hear a sound, I hear a plane or whatever, I hear a bird, or I really notice something in my arm or whatever, to actually divert your attention for a second and sit with it and notice that particular thing for a little while and then come back to the breath. And I just want to know, I guess maybe there isn't really an answer, but like, how often or do you like stay on the one pointed meditation of no, just come back to your breath, as opposed to floating off into some of these things you might notice?
It's fluid. There's a mockingbird that seems to live right outside my window. There's a window like 2 feet from here. And he likes to sing, and I think he's looking in the window to see when I'm meditating. So I can bring my awareness to I'm hearing. What does that feel like? And I can do that until I feel like I don't need to anymore. The point is to be aware of the fact that I'm doing that. So there's no like real formula. I have this book, I think it's called The Everyday Meditator, and in it is 3,000 different ways to meditate. Literally 3,000 different ways to meditate. Okay. Bringing mindful. I'm not sure whether or not I'm answering your question, but the point is just bringing mindful awareness to the process. And when I'm done listening to the bird, I'm done listening to the bird. Hopefully the pain in my arm will go away. I used to sit on a cushion on the floor. 3 knee surgeries later, that's kind of off the table. But my teacher used to talk about making friends with the pain in your legs. And just noticing, what are the elements of that? Does it feel like pulling? Does it feel like pushing? Is it stinging? Is it aching? Is it pulsing? Is it steady? Just noticing the qualities and elements of whatever it is you're resting your awareness on. Can't do it wrong. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. I guess it's just as long as you know you're doing it, it's okay, I guess.
That's basically it.
What I said. Yeah.
Yeah, just your awareness. Jill.
Ken, I find that I use whatever whatever I need to. I have a whole toolbox of things, and I whatever it can change during my meditation. It can be this day I need to do this. I just use whatever's available to me and whatever I need to.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I got some lower back issues. When you like past 50, stuff starts to happen. I have some lower back issues. Sometimes I'm sitting here and my back starts to feel stiff. So I'm going to go focus on that until I don't need to anymore. Whatever. I mean, Jill's right. Whatever tools are in the box. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Chances are I will not be here next week. Mariel is a really great Dharma teacher. She will be teaching next week. I met Muriel in the training, the meditation teacher training, and I went to one of her things on Zoom right before I started doing this. And she was doing a 4-part series on the Brahma Viharas, which is where I got the idea to do that a couple of months ago. If you steal something from a writer, it's plagiarism, but if you take it from another meditation teacher, it's inspiration. So Mariel will be here next week. I will be in the mountains of North Carolina at Southern Dharma meditating. So thank you all.
Have a good trip.
Thanks. Be well, y'all.